Back to the show, everybody. We've got a special one here with live guest from Germany right now. So it is a true honor that he's willing to stay up so he can talk with us. So that's really works. We're going to just get right to this here. So Frank Jacob, he's an award-winning filmmaker. I just got done watching his Packing for Mars film, which was really, really good. I like that one, and he's well known for his project Looking Glass stuff. So we'll talk about that as well. On the show, we're going to be talking about Mars colonization in Packing for Mars, talking about the infrastructure that is potentially already on the moon, Mars, along with people interviewed people that claim that they actually were stationed, on off-world on Mars, and so we're going to be talking to him about that, and also the upcoming current things to do with the colonization efforts through SpaceX, Artemis, and stuff. To get his thoughts on that as well. So let's just get right to it. Frank Jacob, filmmaker, he is next. Welcome to the Three Beards podcast. My name's Craig, along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is quite
justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
All right, and Austin's missing in action right now, so I don't even know where he's at. So currently it is the Two Beards, and luckily our guest has a beard, so we are officially qualified as the Three Beards still. So Chris, what's going on?
Same old, another day in paradise, ready for the show.
All right, let's try that. Okay, and take two with a little more enthusiasm, and go.
No, I'm ready for the show. I'm very excited about the show.
I know. I'm just messing with you. All right, here we go. So, okay, bring on the guest. Frank Jacob, how are you, sir?
Hey there. I'm good.
Yeah, well, welcome, from the States to Germany. And so right off the bat, what prompted the move? To relocate over to Germany? It was just love the area, or was love interest? I mean, what was it that took you over there to Euro?
It's part of a longer story, but the short version, I guess, would be I was living in Houston for a while at the end in the States. I spent a few years in the States, and I had I just had this urge to go to Europe, and I visited my sister, and she, she's in Munich, and Munich is in Bavaria, and it's a very beautiful area. And I spent a few weeks here, and I thought, this wouldn't be so bad, So I decided to just kind of uproot my life and reinvent myself in Germany, and learn the language and learn the culture, and just restart my life in a new track and see where it leads. That's kind of what started it.
Oh, now, are you a beer drinker by any chance?
I've been known to drink certain types of beers, yeah.
Because that's one of the things I want to get to Europe, but that's what I've heard from a lot of people. It's like that is one of the biggest things to get used to from the U.S. style of drinking beer when you go to Europe, because it's not cold.
It's not cold.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. It's not ice cold. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
you can't taste it, because the beer here tastes so amazing that it would be a shame to put it, to serve it ice cold, because you don't taste the full, richness of all the different flavors. And yeah, especially there's one kind of beer which is called Weiss beer, which is very, very smooth. I mean, when you come over, you got to remember that. That's the one you got to have. That's like
Vice beard.
that one is just the bomb.
So you don't get to taste all the body and all the richness if it's ice cold because you
No,
drink
you
it so
don't.
fast.
No.
So
No, and I
warm.
think American beers like very thin and low alcohol, so it's more like Kool-Aid. You want it cold, because it's going to quench your thirst. But here it's different. It's like it's a whole taste experience. I mean, they've been doing it for hundreds of years, so so they've got it down. They got the beer thing down, and the wine thing too. They got the wine thing down too, by the way.
Oh yeah, well if that's one thing, it just Europe, go. I mean, that's the bucket list trip, is to do that same thing. I mean,
culturally speaking, I think Europe is the place where it's happening, and it started here and it went over to there.
Yeah, I can't wait to get over just everything from the Isles down to Italy and just tour the whole thing, because it's just so it's one of those things. Just it'd be cool to just hop on the train, just to just go around and just see everything, because it's one of those you always read about it, but you never actually get to see, so that I'm jealous is what I'm trying to say. So there we go. You're living a lot of people's dreams right now. So I want to show your site too, before we get too far into this here, because people can find you at frankjacob.com.
Yeah.
And we can zip through this, but there's you have this reel that you can show that's it's kind of pretty cool. It's about long. I'm not going to show the whole thing. It's 3 minutes long, but people can watch that. You can also you can get everything from the webinars that he's part of here on CyberHive. Go there, and that was the one you were talking about that you just did.
That's my new baby. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So you've got the part 1, part 2, and part 3 right here, and that's so what prompted you to tackle this topic, and what?
Oh, the looking glass material was something that I had, obviously heard about many years earlier because of my work on Packing for Mars and my connection with Bill Ryan and my production partner, Tanya Maidenford. She introduced me to the looking glass material as well, but I never did much with it until just recently, actually this year, early in the spring. I was sort of poking around some Telegram channel doing research on a totally non-related subject, and I stumbled on, there was like just this banner that said Looking Glass or Guardians of the Looking Glass or something like that, and I thought, that's weird, that has no place here. So that's of course why I had to click on it, and I clicked on it, and it led me to a YouTube channel of a group that had called themselves the Guardians of the Looking Glass, and they had a couple of videos up, maybe 60 views, nothing much going on, but the videos were for these really intense tech oriented text videos that were described who they were, why they were there, and what was going on with respect to looking glass. And it just, like, I had instant goosebumps and knew that, okay, I knew that looking glass was something that was real. And yet here was this group that kind of resurfaced 10 years after the last incarnation of a, let's say, whistleblower who surfaced and was talking about his involvement in the project. And except the message that these guys were bringing out was a lot more intense and a lot more up to date and a lot more informative in terms of describing the technology and also describing, current state of the current events and how it related to the looking glass technology. So I dug into it, and I, for days was kind of contemplating on, what it was all about and whether I should do something. I was waiting for the usual suspects to do something, write something, or to put it out there, and I noticed nobody was. So I figured, okay, well, I will. So I decided to break the story in an article that was released on a German alternative news portal called the Unbestechlichen, or the Uncorruptibles, translated into English, by a very famous author by the name of Jan van Helsing. It's kind of his platform. And he put the story out on the 31st of March. I made sure he didn't do it on April 1st, obviously.
Yes.
And the same day, by fluke, another expat from Europe by the name of John Nolan, who has a thing called Inspired Channel, decided to, go to visit Jan's site because he knew Jan as well. and out of the blue, and he saw my article there, and he's like, wow, Looking Glass, because he actually had put out a modified version of Bill Wood, who was the last person who was talking about Looking Glass with Carrie Cassidy, on his channel. And so he saw that, and he called up Jan. He said, do you mind giving me this guy's number? I'd like to know if you'd like to do an interview. So then the same day, he reached out to me. I didn't know who he was, and I said yes to the interview, not knowing exactly much about Inspired Channel. And we did an interview, and the next Monday that went live, and within 2 or 3 hours, it had already had over 25,000 hits. Then it was up to 50,000. Within a week, it had 100,000. I think now it's well over 500,000 hits just on that first interview. It just seemed to be a message that resonated with a lot of people, talking about timelines and Looking Glass and its technology. So it just blew up, and I became this like instant web success. So I was doing like dozens of shows. I think I'm still doing them. And this is a topic which I think resonates with a lot of people in terms of for the future, where we're headed. It's a very precarious time we're in right now. And I think any kind of technology that talks about knowing what the future is going to be interesting to people. So that's kind of the nutshell of the story.
Wow. That's fantastic. I mean, it's like I said in the beginning, I watched Packing for Mars, and I really liked it. I haven't watched any other ones yet, and it was when you
should watch Solar Revolution next, then, because that one is also very relative to not only Looking Glass has a relation to it, but in terms of what's going on in our cosmos right now. There's never been a film, even though we did it 10 years ago, there's never been any comparative film that has gone into this topic like ours. So both of those films were actually, when I think about it, they're just as current now as they were when I released them. One was 5 years ago, and the last one was 10 years ago. So they take a while to make because we put a lot into them. They take a lot of time. We try to make them as cinematic and as high quality as we can.
Yeah,
So when you produced this film, did you think that it was going to be very relevant to what's going on today? Did you kind of read the future when you produced this film? Or was that your hopes?
Well, I mean, people have tended to always tell me that I'm 20 years ahead of my time, which is, why I'm always broke and never had anything going. So, no, just kidding. Yeah, I am kind of a future thinker, but I didn't, make the film thinking anything about anything other than I wanted to make a cool film. I wanted to make a documentary film, full length feature that, delved into something which was not just a bunch of talking heads. And like, there's a lot of documentary films tend to be like very dry and not very creative, and just a lot of information, not very much, music or arty, and or at least at that point anyway. And so I wanted to sort of break into a new genre and combine heavy information with cool visuals, cool music, and make it very cinematic. So that's all my mission was. And I was looking for a good subject, and I'd been given this book by an author called Leslie Watkins from this biodynamic farmer in Ontario, Canada, like many years ago, who pulled this book out and said, this is fact, this isn't fiction. And it was written like a fiction. The book is a narrative. It's a novel. It's called Alternative 3. And I took it, and he gave it to me, and I read it, and it was like, yeah, it does not read like a fiction book at all. In fact, I found out later, of course, that the author was a Fleet Street journalist called Leslie Watkins. And Leslie was like an investigative journalist, one of the time when real journalism was still very much alive. So, I mean, very much more prevalent. Not that it isn't alive now. I know a few investigative journalists today that are out there, but they're having a hard time. But anyway, Leslie Watkins put the factual aspects into a story which had actually broke on a science report show out of London a year earlier, which had been put out as kind of a spoof, a mockumentary as their last version of their show. And their show had generally always been factual reporting on science developments. And so when they put the show together, people freaked out. It was kind of like a War of the Worlds of England in a very tiny manner. Mm-hmm. They had tens of thousands of people calling in saying, I can't believe this is going on. And anyway, Leslie caught that story, and his publisher decided to tell him to write a book on it. So he contacted the authors of the screenplay and then basically got the rights to it, and then developed it much more and into the form that became the book you just showed. And that is what became the foundation for me to make a film, because I was online one night looking for nothing really in particular, but I ran across an interview where two people were being interviewed. They were talking about being recruited to go to a Mars colony. And that's what brought the story back to me, thinking, what, is this really true? I mean, and the people were none other than the great granddaughter of, of a president, Eisenhower in this case, and an attorney who sounded extremely intelligent and very, very lucid and articulate. So he didn't sound like he was just some goofball. He was describing details about, jump rooms to Mars and things. And so that I knew then and there that that had to be the story. So I decided to take the foundation of Leslie's work, and kind of build a modern version of it filmically. So the idea of exploring the idea of whether there might actually be a colony on Mars was the foundation. And I made a few parallels to Leslie's book. And we ended up getting to know Leslie, and I know him even to this day. He's still alive. He's 94, I believe now. And great guy. And I did an interview with him, actually, which you can find on our Packing for Mars website, which actually I didn't give you, but the Packing for Mars movie website has an interview with Leslie Watkins, probably the only interview anyone's ever done since that book was published, other than myself and maybe one person in England, I think a couple of years after the book was published, but since then, nothing. So yeah, very interesting guy, very interesting story behind that novel, and his experience of writing that, and then what happened after he published it. And then after it was released in America, that book came into the possession of Mae Brussell, a very powerful American legendary investigative journalist, who called it the most dangerous book in her library. So there was obviously something to it. And so that's why I decided that would be a good story to go after, kind of with in the spirit of throw a camera in a backpack, in a studio in a backpack, and just hit the road looking for the story, finding my way. And that led me to many of the protagonists in the film that you then see, and also meeting up with my production partner Tanya Maidenford, who also makes an appearance in the film.
That's really good music too. I mean, you have some big names. Linda Moulton Howell, George Norrie, are involved in this. That alternative thing, and then before I get to it, Julie, one of the people watching, she commented, where it's available to watch. I downloaded and rented it from Amazon Prime. I got it through there, watch it there, but you can also go to frankjacob.com. You can actually watch it directly click on his site and you can get it there as well. And that probably would be a better way. I probably would have given you more money than if I'd gone through, Amazon had I. Yeah. So forget I just said the empire of Amazon. Go to frankjacob.com and you can watch it directly from him, where he gets every penny of that. I'm assuming.
Not quite every, but we have to obviously cover our costs, but more than I get on Amazon, that's for sure. We live off of our artwork, of course, and so yes. We're much appreciated if people go to our site, and you can get to the films from the CyberHive site you put up on the screen before too, and you can get to it, of course, from frankjacob.com. There's a special button that says films, and then you can see all of them, not just that one, but all of our films, and we've done some other really cool ones as well.
Yeah, I'll put it right back up there. Yeah, so you can just click right there and just watch. You click that, you can watch the watch the trailer. I can actually get back here. You can click right there. Like I said, right where it says films.
Exactly. Screen Addiction is our production company, and you see Solar Revolution there in German, English, and French. And I think we're going to be putting it out in Spanish too, because it's such a phenomenal movie that people have asked us to make it in other languages, and it's been really done high quality dub, not just really cheap on the cheap. It's many really put a lot into them, and also Packing for Mars is in German, been fully dubbed. The only one that isn't in German is Klaus Donner Chronicles, because it was just would have been too much. But yeah,
no, you just without heaping too much, just gratuitous, but praise. Like I said, it was not one of those like cheesy 3D style graphics. This one was an actual really well done production. The music was really good. And like I talked to you a little bit before the show. I mean, you play the didgeridoo on there. I'm going to forget the name of it again. You have a little. You said it was the mouth harp.
The
I do
Mouth
remember
Harp,
that.
yeah, and
Yeah.
even there's even the opening tracks. I mean, I actually put some of the soundtrack together on the road with musicians that I ran into, old friends of mine, and some others that we connected with. We actually jammed out in the like some of this, the opening or the second track in the film is a jam that we did in the Rolling Stones garage studio. I played it on actually Charlie Watts' drum kit. I'm actually playing on that track. My friend plays
Oh,
the
wow.
bass and another friend plays the guitar. So that really spacey track that leads you down the rabbit hole in the very beginning,
Mhm.
that was actually recorded there. So, and we have Kim Shaheen also. He plays the guitar. He's also somebody who's written songs for, you know, people like the Stones or worked with them. And he's, you know, he appears, he makes a cameo in the film as well, playing the acoustic guitar. So it was very much a flow. There was a flow artistically, musically, everything. I tried to sort of put the whole journey into the film so that it became this whole really immersion process of just exploring this topic, going over to this, you know, to this area of the world and meeting these people and everything that happened.
And that's kind of what it is that when you, for anybody, and like I said, if you didn't have that described, or if you're not, you look at it, it's like, okay, what does just driving through the desert have to do with, you know, going over to Mars? And it's basically
It's a road
it's a
movie.
chronicle of your journey discovering, you know, this topic that you're delving into. And it's a it's an elaborate way of just showing. It's like I could have just said I flew to over here to California, or I flew over here to Vegas, I flew over here to see something. But no, you actually get to see the journey that it went through, and it was really well done. And that,
Thank you.
yeah, with one of the topics like you got onto, and you talked a little bit about it just here a little bit ago. His name is failing me though, but you know, he said it for 17 years he was on the planet. And one person I was talking to, and my wife said the same thing too. She goes, you know, I told her, I don't know. Maybe you know the answer. I need to get more in depth in this, but it's the gravity issue. It's like, how was he able to walk back here on, you know, Earth if he spent 17 years on Mars? And I'm like, there
You're talking
must have
about
been,
Captain K.
yeah. And that's, you know, because I go, his body should have just absolutely transformed in that amount of time to where he wouldn't have been able to come back after that, because of being in such low gravity scenario, coming back to this weight. I mean, it would have been basically like free diving to the bottom of the ocean. You just would have
Right.
crunch.
Right. Yeah, sure. No, the thing is, you know, all these are valid points, right? Because we have Andrew Bishaga talking about the jump rooms and his experience. I don't think we actually explored his story, the Mars aspect of his story. But what happened is that you know, I found that during the course of us making the film, which took 5 years, a lot of whistleblowers emerged that we didn't know about even before when I started the story. So you know that we included them in the sense that, in the spirit of, let's put their story, or let's put aspects of their story into the film. Obviously, we didn't want to scatter it with too much crazy information and too much craziness. We tried to keep kind of a sort of a level head with respect to exploring the possibility, the probability of if that actually existed. And so we included some of these stories that were breaking. Michael Sala broke that particular story, I think. And we included that section in the film just to kind of show you some of the landscape. Now, whether Randy Kramer actually walked around on the surface of Mars for 17 years, I mean, that's up for debate. Like a lot of these stories, a lot of these whistleblowers have very little evidence to back up their claims. Now, I think that, you know, there's a lot of strange, anomalous activity going on the surface, which would indicate that what's going on the planet isn't necessarily happening on the surface, and maybe there's a different gravitational aspect below the surface of Mars, which I think is where most of the stuff of the activity, or at least the bases that people have described that are going on, is taking place. And also a lot of it is, I think, it has to do with this 20 and back program that Captain K talked about. We didn't get into that in Packing for Mars so much. I could have. I mean, the one who actually is I think, I'm not to discredit anybody out there, you know, openly, but I think that this 20 and back story, the originator of that story is a guy called Michael Relf. And when I first dug into the story, I found out about him through Alfred Lambermont Weber, and I contacted his wife. She was the contact point because he's off the radar. And she verified that actually she had, put him through series of regressions where that whole 20 and back story emerged with a certain biofeedback technology that she was using as a therapist. And she made it clear to me that I was welcome to use any aspect of the book that they put out about it. They published a book about Michael Ralph's story. And I was going to actually read passages of that book in the film, but as it turns out, the film got longer and longer, and to try and make you end up with a lot of stuff on the cutting floor that you really wished you could have put in. So unfortunately, Michael Ralph's story didn't make it in either. But then Randy Kramer emerged with the 20 and back story. Corey Good emerged with the 20 and back story, and I'm not sure whether or not those guys are just plagiarizing a story that Michael Ralph told, or whether their story is real, because again, they don't have any evidence either.
But it could be too that they're just I mean, obviously if we're on planet, they're gonna have technology that obviously we don't know about. I mean, they could have already easily compensated for this thing.
Sure, so, like gravitational aspects in their suits, things to make them acclimatize to it better, or the other way around, getting back to Earth and whatnot. Yeah, for sure. But I think one thing that is sure is that there's anomalous stuff on the surface of Mars which cannot be explained away so easily. In fact, more and more of the material that's surfacing on, Rami Bar-Ilan, for example, he's one of these guys that scours the NASA sites and looking for anomalies on the surface that were photographed by the rovers that are apparently up there. So, and that some of the stuff that's emerging, I think you may have caught recently. There's this surface. There's this like doorway which they photographed, which looks.
Yeah, I've got a picture I can bring up. Hopefully, real quick.
Nori had it up on his site, for example, and you look at it and it's like okay, this cannot be artificial, And then we talk about, I mean, in the film we also get into some of the material at the time. There was another guy out there putting material out that was doing photographic forensics with respect to the surface photographs, and it was very high quality stuff, and that we actually showed in the film that looked like uncanny, like forests, just buildings, and they employ certain smudging techniques to make sure that we do not see. There you have it.
Yeah,
NASA's excuse was, yeah, it looks cool, but it's only 50 centimeters, so it couldn't be a real doorway. Right. But they didn't say, no, it isn't the doorway. This is their way of answering things without answering them.
The crazy part is just the perfect cleaving, where it's not something that would just be, that's not a way something's going to break off that way.
No, exactly. And there's more. I mean, we show a lot of that also in the film. In fact, we did afterward, Tanya Maidenford and I did a lot of live talks and presentations for like the making of oriented kind of stuff. And we show a lot of archaeological evidence that just has that same quality. There's just no way that is a natural formation. And we have Credo Mutwa in the film, as you know, talking about the formations in the Elysium quadrant, which show these pyramids that are perfectly shaped and that we show in the film. We got that material from Jet Propulsion Lab, which was actually handed to us from J.J. Hertog, who was one of the original people to break this archaeological information about the surface of Mars more than 25 years ago. I mean, he was really one of the real pioneers. His name's been kind of lost and buried in the sensationalism of all the Wilcox and Goods and stuff that have appeared on Gaia Channel with all their sensational stories, which you don't know are real or not. And, the whole idea of disclosure is very precarious. And I know very much through the course of producing the webinar, A Tale of Two Timelines, that, one of the big stories of that webinar is, the origination of the origin of Project of Looking Glass technology. And it goes back to Roswell and the formation of a ultra secret society called Majestic 12. And then in this group, and this group in particular are certain members that had specific jobs, and their jobs were disinformation in some cases, like General Twining. His job was to put false information into the UFO community to make sure that nobody knows what the truth is any longer. And when you think about when that took place back in the late 40s, early 50s, you can imagine that some of the material that they dropped out there, how far that tree has grown up to now, 50, 60, 70 years later, right? So, you know, I think there's a lot of contamination in the disclosure movement, specifically geared, you know, to, yeah, you're seeing some of that there. Exactly. Yeah, well, in the film, we really go into it in a lot more, like particularly the Elysium quadrant, because we didn't go so much into the Cydonia Plateau. You know, there's a guy called John Brennan, or Brandt, I think is his name, and he put out. He was an astrophysicist who worked on with NASA, and he put out a very interesting hypothesis about the atomic, the residue of a particular Xenon 128, which is in the atmosphere of only Mars and none of the other planets in our solar system, even though our consistency, the substrate in all of the planets in our solar system is very similar. With respect to that, though, it's unusual. There's anomalous higher levels on Mars, which seems to indicate there was an atomic artificial explosion which took place long time ago. So, and then he shows us some very high definition pictures of the Cydonia Plateau, in particular this 5-sided pyramid. And you see in that pyramid, in the stuff that John that he put out, you can see really what looks to be like undeniable evidence of a city similar to Pompeii. You know, if you look at the architecture of the way they built those structures, and also similar to a lot of structures that are found in South America. And he makes a very good case for the fact that the artifacts that were photographed on the surface of Mars through the rovers, they actually look, you're looking at the low-res version of it. And in our presentation, in fact, I had a presentation online before YouTube censored it that actually dug deep into those close-ups of that terrain. And it was just fascinating because of the link between South America and the artifacts found in that particular area of Mars. But we didn't talk about that so much because the Cydonia Plateau has been kind of overdone with the face on Mars. And, you know, basically we went into it, as you saw, just to lead into the subject. But Elysium was something which not a lot of people know about. And that's why we had J.J. Hertog talking about Elysium and the fact that even Cairo, you know, which actually lines up with certain areas on Mars, is the name for Mars. So, you know, so there's this Earth-Mars correlation that JJ talks about in the film, which, you know, I expand on, of course, much more in the live talks that I give in terms of all the historical and archaeological evidence that links Mars with Earth, from the fact that there's over 528 words in the English language that tie directly to Mars. And most of them have to do with cataclysm and, you know, and really like huge events that took place in the past. And if you look at the history of Mars and you look at the history of Earth, and even what we found on the surface of the moon with that huge ship and this figurine that they recovered apparently and brought back to Earth, which has, you know, a relation to looking like very Hindu-like. And if you look at ancient Hindu mythology, there's a story about a war that took place where there were nuclear explosions and whatnot, and it would go back to roughly that, you know, if you kind of open your mind to the idea that the history could be much older than we think it is on this planet, that perhaps what we're finding on the surface of the moon are actual, you know, spaceship remnants that had a place or took part in that battle described in the ancient Hindu scriptures.
Yeah, I believe that we're not the first, you know, human civilization, you know, that's been on this thing. I mean, we could be, you know, several, you know, iterations, because, you know, all it takes, I mean, everybody's heard me say this a few times. I mean, just like a nuclear blast. How many of us know how to make, you know, a computer mouse, make a computer, make, you know, even make a cup, even make this?
I know, a microphone, right? How does the sound get from your mouth to the amp? Like, with a bunch of gremlins running around in there, you know?
Yeah. So within a few months, everything that's here is of no value anymore because there's no power. Nobody knows how to make power. Nobody knows how to do this stuff. So this all goes away. And before long, we're back to the thing of using sticks and stones for tools and we've basically gone back to the Stone Age
Yes.
in a short amount of time. And so somebody's going to dig up this cell phone, hundreds of years from now. They're going to be like, what was this this
Yeah,
ancient alien tech?
it wouldn't even exist in 100 years. It would be gone. But that's
Yep.
why I kept asking people like Klaus Donner, like, why are there only these stupid cave drawings, from the past? Well, it's because the granite is one of those things that seems to endure through many, many millions of years. And it's probably the only thing that they could do to leave messages to the future on that actually survived, because a cell phone would never survive. There's this film about what would happen in Las Vegas if the world ended. And they show literally that within 10, 20 years, the thing would be, reduced to a bunch of dust. Nothing would survive.
And I mean, that's go back to Tepa, is that, it's a huge, is a thing that's 10,000 plus years old, and you've got carvings and stuff there and there. And it's like, yeah, we don't know exactly what all the carvings mean, but it's still a record of something that they can get. And that's where just a little bit ago, you were talking about it. Do you think that it was Martians came to Earth, and then that's where, kind of we may be the ancestors of that? Or do you think it was a prior civilization that went to Mars and then something happened? And now we're finally discovering what was already there. Like this is a previous colonization attempt, millions of years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Well, what I found evidence that we actually came from Mars, and it's actually interesting because I think it's Teotihuacan pyramid structures in South America. There's the pyramid of the sun, the pyramid of the moon, and the pyramid of Kukulkan. And the way they are lined up, I was shown that you could put, basically, when you looked at it from above and you drew circles to connect those, and if you put that pyramid of the moon in the place of the sun, then you actually realize that the moon pyramid should actually be the Earth pyramid, and Kukulkan should be Mars, because the actual relationship orbitally lines up perfectly. And if you look at the actual size relationship between Kukulkan and the Earth, the pyramid of the Earth, which is the pyramid of the moon, then there's a ratio which comes out, which is the exact ratio between the diameter of Earth and the diameter of Mars. And there's this plaza that leads from Kukulkan pyramid directly to the Earth pyramid, almost as if to say those people who are ancestors who landed there built an actual geographic map depicting their story of coming from Kukulkan, who is the bringer of wisdom and high technology, and that was brought there. It was almost like they left traces of the story in the actual archaeology, so that you can make this journey from Kukulkan Mars to the Earth pyramid along this plaza. And it's
cool.
Amazing that there are these remnants of that story. So I would suggest that it actually has more to do with them or at least with a certain civilization coming from Mars and coming to Earth. That's not to say that there wasn't already previous civilizations on Earth, or that there's even stories about there was multiple civilizations on Earth at the same time, and that the Mars civilization sort of dominated and took over with advanced technology. There's a whole legend about Antarctica and that actually being the place where they landed and things. I don't know how much credibility there is to it. It certainly is interesting to look at that story. But there is remote viewing evidence in the CIA database, which was released around 2012, which I discovered as well as a few other people. It was a few of us simultaneously stumbled on it, that describes remote viewing experiences that had them in the 1980s looking at Mars and reaching out and making contact with an ancient civilization that was on the surface of Mars during an event where it was either a cataclysm or some kind of a nuclear or atomic or some kind of a destructive process that was taking place. And the people that were there were waiting to get off the planet. And they were describing where they went, and what they described sounded eerily a lot like the way Antarctic may have been, because Antarctic is full of underground thermal lakes and certain climate and vegetation that existed there that was found frozen in the Admiral Byrd expeditions seems to link up with what those remote viewers were seeing the people on Mars describe to them. So it's a very fascinating story.
That's probably why the Nazis had such a fascination, where like in that thing to get down there to Antarctica. So, I mean, there's a really good chance that, just like we said, that there is something there, whether, and it could be it could be ancient Martian, space travel, that's where they landed their stuff, it's down underneath the ice sheet. And that's what because I think there's many reports of like, there is massive stuff underneath that sheet of ice. Like there's just like almost like an entire civilization.
Sure. Well,
Like
there's maps that show Antarctic without ice on it, So, we have a vast history on this planet that is yet to be discovered, and we're finding things under the sand. And with LiDAR technology, we're finding things in the jungles of South America that are just mind blowing. That are not visible to the naked eye, and they go deep underground. So that there's stuff in the sand which is lost, there's stuff in the jungle which is lost, and I'm sure there's stuff on these other continents like Greenland. I mean, why is it called Greenland, right? If it's under ice. And North Pole is also one of those places in Greenland where Byrd and there was like a whole there's a whole science of cataclysm science, which I go into in A Tale of Two Timelines, talking about Charles Hapgood and the the branch of cataclysm science, which included people like Velikovsky, which described planetary alignments that weren't always the same as they are now in ancient times, and also the remnants of, they found freshwater lakes in Antarctica, and they also found evidence of animals and vegetation that was like freshly frozen in the north as well, indicating that there is a routine or a cyclical pattern of the Earth's rotation, which takes place over tens of thousands of years, leading to the idea that the Earth actually does tilt on its axis regularly and then tilt back again into the same position for specific reasons that Hapgood described before he, of course, his book was taken off the market and classified as ultra top secret by the CIA. And then, of course, we found out that Charles Hapgood himself was a CIA double agent working as a geophysicist. So, that was a good way to implant one of their own into the field to make sure that the truth doesn't get out. But the fact is that there's so much to our own history that we talk about in Klaus Donner Chronicles, by the way. That was another video you had up on the screen that was talking about out-of-place artifacts that talk about how there's periodic, deposits of technology which are uncovered in many parts of the world. And Klaus specializes on finding those and putting them out there that show that, we've obviously not been the most highly evolved and highly technological civilization on the planet to date. There's much more to the story. And I think Klaus is one of the only credible people, like that disc you see in the backdrop there, right there. That has pictures of DNA and embryonic development that were, if this is true, that this piece dates back to something like 30,000 years BC, there's no way we would have had knowledge of embryonic and cellular development and DNA that is depicted on this disc.
Oh yeah, no, no way.
So and even the fact that it's of what it's made of, this carbon material, the particular material that was made of is very, very brittle. So if you were to do any kind of etching and chiseling, if they're telling us that we didn't have anything but copper hammer and crude copper tools to build the pyramids, well, that technology precedes the date of the official date of the pyramids by a magnitude of 3 or 4. So if we only had that kind of technology to chisel with, and imagine that disc that you just saw, that would have been shattered to pieces. So obviously they had laser technology and other technology that existed way back when that enabled them to be able to make those things.
So that leads to my question of, are you either deemed crazy or you deemed top secret? And is it just easier to deem you one of those categories versus just saying, hey, he's right, this is what's going on? I mean, do you think we'll ever get the truth? Because there's people like you, Three Beards Podcast, there's a lot of people who really want the truth, and it seems like we get closer to getting it and then it just goes further away. I mean, so what is your take on that?
Well, it plays back to what I was saying earlier. There's a lot of disinfo agents put into the alternative scene, to the disclosure scene, specifically for that reason, to make sure that the truth doesn't get out. So they put storytellers out there who weave fantastic tales, so fantastic, of course, backed by absolutely nothing, and they pull a gullible audience in who are hungry for the truth, because all of us know. And as we have Richard Dolan saying in Packing for Mars, we know that we want the truth and we're hungry for the truth and we feel like we're missing something. So the best way to hide it is to hide it out in the open, cover it up with a bunch of fictional material. The other thing they do is they ignore it completely. And of course, the other one is, like you mentioned, they call you crazy. So it's safe to leave the information out there in the open, because you don't really know in the end what is real information. Which is why a guy like Klaus is very valuable, because he doesn't just jump to conclusions. He never showed up on the scene, claiming to be, visited by the Pleiadians and given information about alternative realities and stuff like that. I mean, he just kept it very down to earth. Now, there are those people that are out there, there are contactees, and there are genuine contactees. And those people are probably feeling the same kind of pressure that they're being, their stories being contaminated by others that are out there, making the craziest stories up about Pleiadians and Arcturians and whatnot. And, there's so many different alien species out there now. So you're caught between, trying to figure out how to navigate through this material. Then you have the other aspect of it, which was the atheistic view of reality versus the creationist view of reality. And depending on how religious you are, if you believe in God, the creator, then the idea of all these multiple universes or these multiple species is, again, an affront or a conflict with your belief system. So, there's a lot of, that's what I spend most of my time doing, is trying to decipher the fiction from the fact. And I try to do my best to kind of really detail what's factual and what you can actually back up with some kind of evidence. Now, we don't need to throw science out completely, even though there's a lot of fake science out there. The kind of science that, the science where if you pay me enough money, I will tell you whatever you want to hear, or controversially, you won't get grant money unless you give us the results that we want to hear. Right. So that's that form of science, which is unfortunately the prevalent form of science, is the populist form of science. And then there's the real science, the science that actually does trial and error and has to actually go by the premise that when you have a theory and you find evidence which contradicts your theory, you have to abandon your theory and go with the new evidence. And unfortunately, in our world right now, which is based on a system and stability, we tend to be building our science on models that are long obsolete, simply because we have a global infrastructure to exploit technologies based on those ancient forms of science. So instead of leaping forward into the new technologies like free energy and teleportation and things like that, we had that General Kwas talking about in January 2019, I think it was, talking about, we have teleportation, we have wireless energy, but we don't have the infrastructure to develop those technologies. And I just had to shake my head and go, my God, there it is, another person making it clear to us that we have all this technology out there, but we're not using it. We're not putting it out there in the public domain, and it's therefore kept into very small circles of private hands, such as the looking glass technology, which gives only certain people this technological advantage, instead of being used as a gift for humanity to propel ourselves into this new age that we're supposed to be moving into.
Well, Edison and Westinghouse was the same. It's just like, if what is the purpose of having it if we can't put a meter on it?
Exactly.
We got to be able to put a meter on it, so we can make money. I go with this wireless technology, Tesla, you psycho. You're just going to beam free power to everybody. It's like, how are you going to meter that?
Right. And I think, instead of, they could have still figured out ways to monetize it, but it would have been still a lot cheaper for, maybe it's just a device, that you have to buy, and you make that one-time investment, and then you have the device and it runs for 10 or 20 years, whatever, so, but it's not the kind of thing where every month you're being sucked dry. And now we're, what are we facing now with the stupid, Putin, Ukraine, Zelensky constellation? We're facing energy prices going through the ceiling again. Because why? Because of war and limited thought, political garbage, corruption,
Yep.
It's just, this is the kind of stuff that we're living in our world. This is the kind of world that we're in right now. It's almost, for those of us who are into waking up and getting into this consciousness stuff and disclosure, it's just painful to watch this world evolving out there like a crash in slow motion, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's you're just like, you're just like, can nobody else see this? I'm like, you see it coming. It's like it's getting ready, and you're like, oh, there's nothing you can do. It's one of those. It's from the Matrix. There's a, when he's sitting there with the dinner, it's like, it's like ignorance is bliss. And there's times where you're like, how awesome would it be to just be back to that point where, you're just sitting there like in the diner, just eating the steak and just not worried about anything. It's like when you realize it's fake. It's nothing's, this is all, this is all a construct. It's like now once you're in that point, you're just like, oh, I would love to just put the genie back in the bottle just for a day, just to experience the bliss that some people have going out there. It's just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's kind of a nutshell to what's going on in the society right now. What I've, in my recent works that I've been talking about is with Looking Glass is timelines, timelines and what that means. And we are in a position right now where I believe we're heading for the realization, the victory of one timeline over another. We still have, like, a lot of people think that we're going to have like a timeline split, and there's going to be one timeline with conscious people and one with unconscious people. But and the more I've dug into this material, I've realized that actually I think the other way around. We actually have multiple timelines right now, two prevalent ones. One of them is very dominant, and that's been developing over the last 100 years because it's been shaping our society toward a kind of a materialistic view. It's a very Luciferic view. You could say it's been dominated by, Illuminati elements or satanic elements that want to basically realize the ultimate form of materialism. And what is that? That's eternal life in the material form. And you have Ray Kurzweil and Yuval Harari, and I talk about them in the Tale of Two Timelines. They're pushing us toward this timeline of transhumanism. And then we have another potential timeline, which has to do with the ultimate realization of humanity in its fullest form, which is the unlocking of the junk DNA or the 12 strands, or whatever you want to call it. There's this proclaimed there's this predicted, quantum evolutionary leap, which the Maya talked about and many other indigenous cultures, which is about to happen in our time right now. And the interesting thing about the Looking Glass story is that it actually involves the return of humanity 45 and 52,000 years respectively into the past to our time right now, to either secure the timeline that originally led to their future, or to actually break away that timeline and create an opportunity for this timeline that I call the organic, human timeline, that is going to lead us to this expression, this full expression of what we actually have dormant as capabilities as humans right now, which is, we only see it with people that have special gifts, special psychic gifts and telekinetic gifts and things like that, or telepathic gifts. But these are things that are normal things they're actually tied to our genome, but they've been locked away and we have yet to realize them. And yet here we are facing up against a group of people that want to forever, block that aspect because they're atheists and they don't believe in the creative aspect of our genome. They actually want to take our genome away from the organic and move it into artificiality in the form of an artificial intelligence-based society, which is, taking the form of, robots, that they take their consciousness out of the brain because they believe not in spirit, but that everything is in the physical, obviously. So they believe that they can slice your brain up, and that way they can capture who you really are, put it into a hard drive and stick it into some sexy robot, and then you have eternal life. And the sad thing is they have the money, the marketing, and the people behind them to push that reality through. Whereas what have we got? We have us. Most of us don't have a lot of money, and we have our time, but we're facing, all this, pollution in the disclosure field to try and bring the truth out. And we're trying to bring out the truth and make people aware that, hey, there is this other timeline which we need to manifest, but we can't manifest it if we don't know we have to manifest it, and we don't know how to, and we don't know that we have to visualize it. It ain't going to happen on its own. Like some people tend to think you can just sit back, watch the show. It's taken care of. The white hats are doing the business, right? Well, I'm thinking like maybe we should be more like Plan B here. What if the white hats don't exist? What if we're the white hats and we've been lulled away from springing to action and actually beginning to manifest this timeline before it's too late? And that's what that whole story of the Looking Glass is all about.
That was you kind of touched almost on both sides, I think, because Elon Musk with his current mission to Mars, and that's where one of the things I talked about too, and is he came out with, I think it was a couple years ago, where he came out with that alarm. AI is going to be the death of us. I've got to get off this planet. We have got to get to Mars.
2018,
yeah. And so you're like, okay, so he's seeing this threat. He's seeing this thing. Okay, we got to get here, tied. But then in the same thing, it's almost as if like the handlers got to him. He comes out with the implant, the brain implant, and starts talking about how he's got it to where now you could plug this in, and he's full bore with interfacing with the computers. He's embraced. It's like it was almost like something happened, like he got replaced, and suddenly now he's like, oh yeah, AI is not that bad. I'm actually full bore into it. Here, we're going to plug in, we're going to be able to do this. And I'm like, so what is it? I mean, in kind of when you're talking about the timelines, do you think this is how Mars plays into it? Like, this seems to be, if we can get back there, we may be able to unlock
what's
some of these things.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is the J-Rods talk about how, they left the Earth when this cataclysm took place. They went underground, they survived for many, many, centuries, and eventually they got off planet. And of course, they went to the moon and they went to Mars, and then onward to Zeta Reticuli. And what's interesting is that, when I rediscovered that whole story and I dug deep into it again, I realized, oh my God, like that civilization on Mars, those remnants, they may actually also be tied in that way, that they actually might be us having left behind something for us in the past to see. Right. I mean, it's hard to get your mind around some of these ideas.
Oh yeah.
But the idea is not that far-fetched that, I mean, what we're talking about here is traveling dimensions. And it isn't necessarily traveling distances, because time is a dimension. And there are these things called stargates all around our planet, which are what the Looking Glass technology needs to be in the proximity of, to be able to reproduce these images of the timelines that people
Mm-hmm.
running the projects were viewing and documenting and trying to manipulate. So Elon Musk, it's interesting. For many people believe he's kind of like the Batman kind of the real world,
Mm-hmm.
who's developing all this technology. But it's kind of sad that he has a company called Tesla, and he doesn't really openly talk about the fact that who Tesla really was, and the fact that Tesla in 1931 had created an electric car that didn't have a motor. That was in 1931. And I wonder all the time, like, isn't the guy curious? Like, excuse me, your company's called Tesla, and this guy Tesla invented wireless electricity, and you're building electric cars that are creating massive pollution with their stupid lithium system, and they're causing massive human slavery and pollution on the planet. And you want to invest $44 billion in buying Twitter, when actually you could invest maybe $4 billion, maybe only 10% of that, and or just give 10 of the most promising inventors of free energy technology, which I know exists today and existed already since 100 years, a campus and unlimited funds, and move all the blocks out of their way. And I guarantee you, within 1 or 2 years, you will have a free energy device to put into your Tesla car, and you wouldn't have to make lithium batteries anymore to pollute the planet. Why doesn't he do it?
Great idea. Yeah.
Right. Why doesn't he do it? I can't be that brilliant.
Elon, come on the show right now and tell us.
Right.
It's just,
I'm sorry. I don't have much faith in Elon Musk anymore.
Well, I've always wondered.
He's been placed. He's a planted person. He's just there to make sure that we don't get to the truth. Unfortunately, as much as I like the guy, he seems kind of cool. But his girlfriend's a rock star or whatever. But I mean. So what? It doesn't count for anything if you don't make it. Like, people like us are putting our names and our faces out there, talking and provoking and pushing this endless conversation about free energy and about, the coming, for example, another aspect of the coming future timeline of transhumanism is this idea of digital currency, central banking digital currencies, which is going to create a programmable currency that's going to enslave all of humanity, which is coming right around the corner, and they're developing it in 49 countries right now. And why aren't people like Joe Rogan and Elon Musk, we should be dropping everything and talking about that right now, because that is what's going to change society more than anything, more than electric cars, more than the green movement. This is the stuff that's coming at us, that Geordie Rose, the inventor of the D-Wave computer, or let's say the guy who had the company who invented the D-Wave computer, over 10 years was telling us is coming at us like a tsunami. And yet no one is talking about it except a few of us. And, we're talking and talking and talking to get the information out there. But, I even had an Illuminati contact me, a Rothschild, who's been taking up contact with me. And he starts talking about he's part of the Illuminati and their ideas to bring humanity together and evolve together. And I'm like, yeah, well, you have some problems with your model, dude. Then if that's the case, you've got some flawed thinking. Did you know that this and this and this is going on? Because, sorry, the game's got it. We got to up the game right now. We can't be saying, oh, we're going to, raise consciousness and humanity and then be totally oblivious to what's happening. Because this is the kind of stuff, these are the kind of things that are happening right now are going to determine whether we are the end of humanity, my friend. Are we the end of organic civilization? Are we going to move into a transhumanist culture like Elon Musk is creating Neuralink, and that's only going to lead further to becoming robotized and becoming an android civilization? Are we going to move away from organic humanity now? Is this it? Because Ray Kurzweil is saying it is, and so is Yuval Harari, and they've got a lot of money and people behind them with the power to make that work. And I'm not so sure that that's the way we want to go. And why aren't we talking about this all over the planet every day? We're not, because we're distracted with all the cool sci-fi shows and
Johnny Depp, Amber Heard. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, we gotta watch the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. We gotta do these things,
or the useless cool stuff, like the flat Earth phenomenon, which was funded, or the Tartaria stuff. It's cool information, but come on, like, is it helping us? Is it important right now?
Oh no, yeah. I think I absolutely loved. I think that one of the best one was the Flat Earth Society. They had somebody. They were talking about it. Well, how many members you have? It said they talked about the number of members they had all around the globe. And that was on the tweet, and you're just like, yeah, I go, you guys can't even get your own story straight. It's like, come on. It's just easily distracted. There's a guy going around in the van, birds aren't real. That's his whole thing,
come on. The amount of conspiracy, we got ridiculed for being called conspiracy theorists, digging into this material. But the amount of conspiracy behind keeping a flat Earth secret.
Oh, yeah.
Forget it, man.
Yeah, birds aren't real, flat Earth. You're just like, oh my God, just
everything's in question. And then you're like, then you just might as well run around like a zombie, because then everything, then everything, you can throw the entire, any kind of concept of reality out the window.
Exactly.
So those are the people, I believe, that are thrown out there to distract people, because birds are not real. So if he gets 100 people to listen to him, then that's 100 people that's took their mind off of what's really going on. Birds aren't real.
No satellite, no such thing as satellites, and they're just balloons and stuff like that. And the moon is like this projected plasma thing out there. Unfortunately, the problem is, for every one of their different ideas, you have a new theory. Mm-hmm. So you have like 50 different theories to explain flat Earth. Whereas if you just accept that the Earth is, let's just say it doesn't have to be a perfect round marble, but it's just this, this model of the Earth being part of a system that's circular, that traveling through the galaxy explains everything easily. Why not use that? That's how science actually should work. Your theory should actually be something which explains a lot of stuff in the simplest possible way, not the most complicated way, where you have, for every single new element of your theory, you have a new theory. Just doesn't work. That's not how science works. But that's just not how it works. And as much as I respect the flat Earth people for being, thinking outside the box and discovering some interesting anomalous things around the planet, it's not enough to make that final leap to say the Earth is, whatever. That's just my opinion. I don't want to get into a debate about flat Earth here, and it's become a heated debate. It's amazing. Yeah.
You get some people that are on there, but like, look at the time. We got to wrap this up so you can get your you've got your buddy back there that's just dying to go to bed. I can see right now. It's yeah, he's great because we're approaching 3 a.m. your time. So right now, I'm going to bring it back up here so that everybody can see it and go to your site. So everybody needs to go, check it out. Go to frankjacob.com. I'm going to bring it right up here on the screen. This will give you everything you've got. Go to Cyberhive. You can see the films there. You can rent them and watch them right there. Webinars. You've got all the information that you can connect with him via, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. Go there, check out the stuff. But I watched Packing for Mars, really liked it. I'm going to have to check out the Project Looking Glass stuff and see how that is too. But yeah, I just want to thank you for coming on the show, sir. That was a real pleasure. And, congratulations on success. And like I said, I really hope for success, in the future for you. It's like, great job.
Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. And it's a joy to talk to people who are, open and truth seekers. And that's what it's all about. And we got to keep the dialogue going.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So thanks again.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Have a great night. Like I said, everybody, please go there, support him. Support him. Like I said, get some rest. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah.
All right.
Good night. Good day.
Good night.
Yeah. Cheers.
All right. And this episode is brought to you by threebeardspodcast.com. Once again, we're still waiting for that sponsor. We've plugged enough stuff. I mean, how much more stuff? I mean, I even have a Pepsi sign behind me. Here, Ricola. Ricola is an amazing drop. It works amazing. So when you have a scratchy throat like me and you're having these natural herbs, I feel so good. Tastes so amazing. Ricola.
Fume vape box. You can give me some vapes and I'll vape them on the show and tell people how they taste.
Somebody. I mean, somebody's got to know somebody. I mean, I just, what's going to happen? It'll happen one of these times.
Sharpie.
Please. Yeah.
I mean,
don't make us have some lawyer.com studio. Please. It'll fund the thing, but I really don't want to have, this is brought to you by blah, 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 law firms incorporated.
You slip, you fall, law firm.
Yeah, we don't want that. And we don't want some adult store sponsor, because I really don't want to have to be telling this show was brought to you by dildos. So, as I said, we're not doing this. So I said, we got to find something good. So please. Oh my God. So check us out on social media. We are on pretty much everything. It's just TikTok, Instagram. We have 2 accounts there. We're on Twitter. Apparently we have 2 accounts on Twitter. Somehow we set up 2 accounts. So we have a little ghost account out there. So Facebook, YouTube, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, comment. I know, Harlan, I know, I couldn't resist. That's the inside joke. We always talk. I was probably about a year and a half ago. Chris was suggesting it's like, what, you wouldn't take the money? I'm like, no, I am not going to say this show was brought to you by Dildo Palace. I said, no, we're not doing this. I go.
If they're paying money, I'll say I'm brought to
you by
I'll
go broke.
Direct.
I'll go broke before I say I'm sponsored by. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to draw the line on that one. So. Yeah, so check us out on that. You can sponsor this show. You can go through, it's redbubble.com /3beards podcast, or you can go to threebeardspodcast.com. And Journey's like, I'm okay with Dildo Palace. Oh my God. Yeah, so you can check us out there, buy the gear, merchandise. Patreon.com is also another way you can go there /3beards podcast. Support us that way. We had a couple people. Julie and Harlan, gave some stars. I think Ron told he did as well, and I really appreciate that. Really helps us out, you guys. It means quite a lot that you guys are willing to do that for us. So appreciate that. But just go, and then we're rebroadcast every Wednesday night, courtesy of Ron as well, on ERRT Radio every Wednesday night. Hey, good night, Mason. 11 p.m. Eastern time ish is when we're on there. So just check that out. On I think it's Mixler. Is how you can listen to the show there on ERRT Radio. You can also find that on Facebook as well. But so everybody, thank you for watching the show. We are going to be back with another one next week. Hopefully, we're going to find out where that missing red bearded guy was that did he no-showed on us. So everybody can admonish him when he gets on here for standing us up. So he probably has a good excuse, but we're still going to give him a hard time. So everybody, thanks for watching. Have a great night. We will see you next week. Good night.